Great mid-century spaces are all about balance, not symmetry. And if you're struggling with how to arrange anything in your house from pictures on the hearth wall to the right spot for an addition, it's probably because you're trying to apply advice that's from shelter magazines or home shows that's not meant for your mid-century home. Great MCM design plays by its own rules. These aren't regular houses, they're cool houses. And the asymmetry rule in mid-century design is one perfect example of that. As an architect who specializes in updates for mid-century homes that keep that MCM character alive, most of the internet advice out there, even listicles with mid-century in the search term, aren't actually geared towards the underlying design principles of mid-century homes. When you walk into a house that's remodeled into the wrong era, either in the past or today, it's easy to spot that something's not right. You can feel it immediately. But it's easier to notice a mistake than understand how it was made or prevent it in advance. A quick scroll of Zillow will show you dozens of bad examples, but how can you know that the choices you're making right now are going to take your house in the right direction, preserving or putting back mid-century style as you improve the layout, fix maintenance issues, and tune the house to match your lifestyle? There are 4 design cornerstones that underlie almost everything that makes a good building feel and look mid-century. And if you're planning an update to your mid-century home, you want to include each of these in almost every design choice you make. The first one is leaning into asymmetry. Beyond that, you're going to think about the materials you're using in your mid-century update. The right mix of materials, a combination of both organic, natural things like brick, stone, and tile, and space-age materials like plastic, glass, formica, metal, are going to combine to create the right look and feel for a mid-century style. Mid-century design is executed in a language of very simple shapes. Not even shaker cabinet doors, that's too much. We're talking plywood wall panels, slab doors and drawers on your cabinets, and right here in the house. If there is a detail in shape, it's often leaning into the space age, a playful trapezoid, a starburst, maybe a simple angle at a cabinet edge, a kidney-shaped pool, but never anything particularly ornate or articulated. The final cornerstone of great mid-mod updates and mid-century design to begin with is flow between spaces. Connections between indoors and out are one of the hallmarks of mid-century design in high-end homes in California. It also comes into play in open plan layouts inside of houses, but even in a modest mid-century ranch, you're going to see a connection between the dining room and the living room. You're going to see sight lines, a simple picture window. All of these are examples of flow that's more important in a mid-century house than you would have found in any house built earlier in other eras. Applying these 4 cornerstones works at the whole house re-layout level and also at the level of every individual purchase, a light fixture or a hardware replacement project. When you can confidently apply them, they will help you rule out wrong choices, simplify your design decisions, and feel confident that every design decision you make is enhancing mid-century quality. To make these design tactics work very well for you, you'll want to include them in an overall design strategy, something that's going to help you think about what's important to your life, what's necessary for the house you have, the design style you want to include, test options, and develop a master plan that's going to help you break a project into phases or tackle it coherently with confidence. Communicate with contractors in the way you want and be able to get these specific design details built into every project. If you're curious about how to do this and how to avoid the mistakes that a lot of homeowners make when they start to apply some of these design cornerstones, check out my free masterclass, Planning a Mid-Century Remodel to Fit Your Life and Budget. You can go to my website, midmod-midwest.com/ready, to watch that class and learn all about the program that I also use to support homeowners as they plan great remodels for their mid-century homes. If you're a mid-century homeowner, you're going to be seeking out advice from people who care about your mid-century home as much as you do. And to be able to weed out a lot of the incorrect advice that's out there on the internet, having a strategy like the mid-century master plan method is going to keep you on track from start to finish. Now that we've covered the 4 cornerstones in overview, let's focus a little bit more on asymmetry. Thinking about how to apply asymmetry to any part of your house is going to supercharge your design energy. It's going to free you up to make easier choices. Easier to hang pictures on the wall when you don't have to worry about making everything match from one side to another, even though there's a door on one side and a window on the other end. Easier to decorate for the holidays. Where do you put the Christmas tree? It can have a focal point in the corner rather than centered on the wall. Easier to figure out how to create landscaping that leads up to your front door, and easier to place and scale and think about the roof lines for and all of the other elements of an addition. You're welcome. So what am I talking about when I say symmetry versus asymmetry? Well, the human face is a perfect example of bilateral symmetry. We've got 2 eyes, 1 nose in the middle, 1 mouth. We tend to smile in an even way, but symmetry can also feel a little rigid, a little formal. And the mid-century era was about playful, casual living. It was about balance more than it was about symmetry. And in our houses, it meant a garage balanced by a residential wing with your living space in the middle, the door off to one side. it can be really hard to get symmetry out of your brain. So if you're struggling with this, one easy way to do it is not to work with pairs of objects, but to try to give yourself an odd number of objects to arrange. Even with an odd number, you can fall into the symmetry trap. You can have one thing in the middle and put two things on either side of it. Boom, we're back to symmetrical. So start to play with the heights of things. 2 elements higher and 1 lower. As you think about asymmetry, about balance, you're also thinking about directionality. So when you're dealing with a wall that has a doorway on only one side, you might think about 2 high elements and 1 more at eye height that directs your eye, your attention to rotate, to turn towards the way you want to move someone through the room, the way you regularly move through the room. All of the 4 cornerstones are connected, so you can use the unbalanced element or the directional element of an asymmetrical layout to create better flow or to lead to the flow that you're trying to emphasize. Here's an example. If you're thinking about built-ins in an entryway, mid-century houses generally don't have a lot of mudroom space, so you might have room to have a bench flanked by high storage units on both sides. Great, you don't need it. You can think about placement based on practicality. Where do you want to come into the house and sit down? That's where the bench goes. If you're having a high element next to the bench, what does that lend you to look towards? Are you directing your view out towards a window, towards the backyard? One of the biggest struggles people have when they try to put symmetry onto a mid-century house is that you won't find existing symmetry anywhere in a mid-century house. Your modest builder-grade ranch house is going to have rooms that are not set up for symmetrical layouts, of furniture facing a hearth because there's passageway along one side, of spaces in a bedroom because there's a door, a window, something is placed on every single wall, of light fixtures in a bathroom because of the arrangement of other appliances already built into the space. Everything is going to be fit into the minimum amount of space. Mid-century houses are very practical. Trying to apply symmetry to it will make everything feel a little higgledy-piggledy, a little off. It will be a constant arm wrestling struggle, one you don't need. Trust the focal points and the balance of your existing house. Here are a couple of easy places around your house to play up the asymmetry element of mid-century design. At the front door, fight your urge to make things symmetrical. Work with your existing wiring. If you've got a light fixture on either side of the front door, you don't need to remove one. But if you only have a light on one side of the front door and it feels like it's a little unbalanced, give that light fixture more weight. Line up house numbers underneath it. Place the mailbox in that general vicinity. There are so many elements at your disposal here. You can play with planters, siding changes, a little bit of vertical siding on one side of the door and horizontal in another to kind of lead you over towards the garage or look away from it. You can play with the arrangement of a front deck or front porch. It does not, and frankly should not be, symmetrical on the front door itself. It should have more space on one or the other, considering your door swings, where you might want to have a bench to collect Amazon packages or a place where people might gather if they're waiting to ring your doorbell and come in. Taking it inside, the complexity of fitting in a hearth and TV in the same spot often leads people to stack them, and this is something you'll see in an infinite number of home shows and magazine articles. Stacking your TV and hearth is a terrible idea, leaning into the idea of symmetry you don't need, which means that you've got an appliance, a heat source, and you're sitting and looking up from a sitting space when really you want a straight eye line from your sitting area to your TV. If you can put them in 2 different nearby places or on 2 parallel walls and create an arrangement that gets you a chance to look at both of them, freeing yourself from the need for symmetry, a sofa flanked by 2 chairs, is going to be the missing ingredient that has been holding you back from finding success. Instead, thinking about a sofa with 2 chairs on one side forming an L-shaped sofa with a lounge element, thinking about pushing things over towards a wall rather than centering them in the room, or pulling them out from the wall if you've got an urge to push everything up against the one long wall in your house with the sofa back straight against the wall. Giving everything a little more breathing room can be a really powerful design move. At the hearth itself, the feeling of asymmetry which is designed into the house, if you have any kind of a stone or brick fireplace hearth element, odds are that it itself is not currently symmetrical. And the sense of asymmetry that's in that may have made a previous owner so uncomfortable that they wanted to paint it white to match the walls to blend away that sense of asymmetry. You might have felt this urge yourself. And if you actually are responsible for painting your own brick, you're probably here because you know that you didn't want to do that, and I'm so sorry that you did. I have known a number of people who've had success in de-painting their brick. Maybe that's a topic for another video. In the meantime, if you're trying to fix the asymmetry of a fireplace, of a hearth area, think about the fact that you don't need to stay color within the lines of the hearth area. You don't need a mantle that's centered perfectly within the stone or brick. Instead, think about an element that extends past the masonry part out into the room, maybe 2 mantle shelves that go different reaching lengths out into the room. Bringing those pieces out can start to move your eye, can again create flow, create an interesting balance that turns your attention from another part of the room or draws it back towards the focal point of the hearth. Fighting the natural asymmetry in your house can cause infinite furniture layout issues, regardless of architectural choices. In a basement layout, for example, divide a long, large space into a couple of zones that are more work zones or social zones around particular nodes. You can define spaces with different wall colors, paneling in one area, drywall in another, a drop ceiling, even the sense of a lowered effective ceiling with a pendant light mounted a little lower that's meant to cast light only on people in a sitting area, again, at the end of the space to draw you through it. You can also use asymmetry to free up every crucial inch of space in your bedroom. Mid-century bedrooms are notoriously hard to furnish. They're both small and they're filled with doors, windows, and storage elements that make it hard to put something up against a wall. While you probably do want to have a bedside table on both sides of a bed for every pair of adults, you don't need to think about symmetrical matching for anything else in the room. And in fact, thinking about built-ins, you might do in a snug space a built-in headboard with a side table on one side that terminates in the wall and on the other side that grows and turns into a higher storage unit. Your overall permission structure. You do not need to center it in a mid-century house. So lean into the asymmetry that already exists and create more elements of asymmetry that create interest, that keep your eye moving, and that direct you to flow to other parts of your house. You'll create asymmetry with the materials you choose, the proportions they're arranged in, and direct them into good flow. All of these cornerstones end up working together to create a design that feels mid-century from the moment you walk in the door. For more help with the overall strategy of planning a mid-century update that's going to include each of these tactics, check out the free class I've got at midmod-midwest.com/ready, where I walk you through all the secrets to planning a mid-century remodel that fits your life and your budget and keeps the mid-century design alive. In this class, I teach the mid-century master plan strategy and also a bunch of mistakes that many homeowners make when they try to DIY that strategy. Because when you understand the underlying goal of a mid-century update, something that's going to help your house last as long again as it already has, to really suit the life that you and your family want to live in it, and to make choices that are in line with your values and your budget, not necessarily what you should do based on some sort of internet list, you can start ruling out advice that's meant for houses from other eras or houses built more recently than mid-century that don't really have any inherent design baked into them. You can ignore anything that's telling you to add more fussy details to your house, put in extra crown molding, extra trim around the base, all the little pieces that can make a house feel fancy but don't make it feel mid-century at all. Not only will you end up with a house that looks more mid-century, you will simplify the process. Now, earlier in this video I said when you walk into a house that was designed in the wrong era, you can tell it at a glance. You instantly know something's wrong. The shapes are wrong. Too much ornate woodwork. Too many extra details. Someone added crown molding around a dining room to make it feel fancier. Now, we've talked about asymmetry. We'll talk about the right shapes, the mix of materials, both modern and space age, and how to get the right flow for a mid-century design into your house over this next video series. So stay tuned for the next one.